Let's go! LSU, ULM, and I know the discussion is supposed to just be about the next head coach. I'll do this, okay? We always do our game previews the day before the game. At the end of the video, though, there is one name that's being floated around right now that I would stay away from. But first, let's talk about this game. Now, I have to say this once and for all. The GARRETT NUSSMEIER situation could not have been handled worse by Ed Orgeron. And now we know that GARRETT NUSSMEIER will not play for the rest of the season, and Max Johnson's backup will be Matt O'Dowd. And if you don't know who Matt O'Dowd is, if you Googled his name, well, a football player wouldn't show up. It would be an astrophysicist. In fact, if you go to Matt O'Dowd's LSU sports profile, well, there isn't one. There's a Matt O'Dowd right there, but there is no bio. There's no history of his stats. He is from Florida, and we just don't know a whole lot about Matt O'Dowd. And the one position you don't want to be playing a walk-on, unless his name is Baker Mayfield, is quarterback. And once again, I can't say this enough. This redshirting of GARRETT NUSSMEIER to this day makes absolutely no sense. And I understand. Nuss, I've heard this repeatedly. Nuss didn't look great against Arkansas. Well, yeah, this was his first time really playing a full game. Not many quarterbacks look great in a scenario such as that one, and let's not blame GARRETT NUSSMEIER for everything, because there was that crazy Wildcat call that really ruined his rhythm. And look, he didn't play well. He had a 27 QBR. But to shut him down after that is only going to do more damage, especially when he could still get game reps right now. And that would be the best thing for him, because as many of you know, quarterback game reps are scarce, and the team really needs him right now. And I understand there's a lot of people that say, well, look, there's nothing left to play for, which couldn't be further from the truth. LSU is still trying to go to a bowl game, and they need to win these final two games. And right now, Max Johnson isn't cutting it. And I don't think people quite understand how bad Max Johnson was in the first couple of quarters versus Arkansas, or his first few drives before he got pulled. He missed not one, not two, not three, but 4 throws just in those few series. He was really bad, and he's been really bad recently. So I don't think people quite understand how dire this quarterback situation is, and I feel bad for each and every one of the players in the locker room that really want to make a bowl, that the coach of the team, Ed Orgeron, was suggesting GARRETT NUSSMEIER take this red shirt. I still think GARRETT NUSSMEIER, the competitor that he is, wants to play right now, but he's being pressured into this situation that I just don't quite understand. You go to schools to play, and if you play the most important position and you were the top backup all season, this is what your job on the team was from the get-go, was to be the backup quarterback, to be the guy that would come in to save the day if the starter is hurt or injured. And look, I hope Matt O'Dowd goes out there and balls out if he's called upon, and I hope Max Johnson plays so well that we don't even have to worry about GARRETT NUSSMEIER. But the likelihood of both of those things actually happening is very, very small. And I would have liked to have seen GARRETT NUSSMEIER actually get the start, actually get the opportunity to take most of the first team reps and have a game plan focused by the offensive coordinator, just tailored around the strengths of GARRETT NUSSMEIER, who in many ways is a different quarterback than Max Johnson. You should play, and it's not too late. You can go to the coach right now and say, Coach, I want these game reps. I want to go out there and play. But once again, much to the chagrin of the team, and by the way, I keep making this point over and over again, you don't have to just redshirt as a freshman. You could redshirt as a sophomore. So this all could be for naught. If GARRETT NUSSMEIER gets beat out for the job anyway next year, he would have gotten the opportunity to redshirt next year. Your opportunity to play is right now, and you are not guaranteed that opportunity. Boom, I'm looking at you right now. Go on ahead, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and before we get into probably the craziest Ed Orgeron quote yet, I do want to bring up one last thing about Garrett Nussmeier. Quick reason, I don't know if this was Orgeron's call or the Nussmeier's call or anything like that. I would say this. I don't think it's good for a quarterback's development for the end of his last 2 seasons. So, full disclosure, at the end of Garrett Nussmeier's amazing senior year in high school, once again, I cannot understate how dominant Garrett Nussmeier was his final year of high school football at the highest level you possibly could play in the state of Texas. And in our initial Nussmeier deep dive, we shared a pretty startling stat. Garrett Nussmeier had the highest completion percentage of any senior high school quarterback coming into LSU. Better than Joe Burrow's ridiculous completion percentage, Ryan Paralus, whoever you want to mention, Nuss's was better. So he was pretty daggum good. Well, his season ended with a finger injury, and that was in the playoff game where his team lost. Tell me if this is actually a good thing for a quarterback's development, that his final throw in the only real competitive game action he received this year was a game-deciding interception versus Arkansas, a game that LSU should have won. Do you think that's actually good for a quarterback's development to have that festering throughout this entire offseason? It's not. That's why he should be playing right now. Back-to-back years of heartbreaking finishes. That's not what anyone wants. That's not what I don't think Garrett Nussmeier wants. Let this guy, who is a ferocious competitor, strap it up and get on the field. And then look, if he doesn't want to do it and he doesn't want to play, once again, that very well could be the case. I just sincerely doubt it. I really do. It's still not too late. It's still not too late for Garrett Nussmeier to say, look, I want to suit up and I want to play right now. And then, of course, before we get into some ULM, we had this embarrassing quote surrounding Lane Kiffin, saying that Lane Kiffin called Ed Orgeron after the Ole Miss game and said, you run the same play over and over, which is something we have been pounding the table about since the Mississippi State game from last year. You can watch every single live stream, even this offseason, even the UCLA game where we've said basically the same thing. And apparently a light clicked on for Ed Orgeron and said, oh yeah, we do run the same thing every time. And it forced LSU to change up their game plan for the Alabama game. And in the last 2 weeks, the LSU defense has been by far the best defense in the SEC West. And let's be honest, if LSU had been doing this defense all season, they probably aren't a 4-6 football team. Still, once again, before we get into this ULM preview, I do think it's very important, and I don't know if the media can do this. I'll do it. If Jake Peetz or Durante Jones is watching this, I would love to interview either one of them, or I would like for them to be interviewed by the media so we can ask, because look, when Ed Orgeron's the only one speaking to the media, he has so much power over the situation. He is the only one giving his perspective on the situation. And I tweeted this out, and we've brought it up plenty of times on live streams. The coordinators need to be made available to the media, because there's a lot that has been said by Ed Orgeron that we don't know the answer to until we actually hear from Durante Jones, such as, was this your defense you wanted to run all year? Or were you the one that decided to change the defense? Are these your blitzes that you came up with? And then for Jake Peetz, a big thing that we need to clear up is, are you the one that actually calls the third down plays based on what the broadcast said? We did a video on it earlier this week. And are the communication issues your fault, or is it something Orgeron could have done a better job of? And what is your thought on how the quarterbacks have developed? There's so many different things that we need to hear from the coordinators about. And because it is important, because whoever the new coach is going to be, especially in the case of Durante, there's going to be questions about whether or not any coaches should be retained. So I would like to hear from not only the coordinators, I'd also like to hear from all the other assistants, because obviously this team has just been you-know-what show all season long. Anyway, let's talk about ULM, a 4-6 team coached by two coaches who a lot of you know about. Terry Bowden is the head coach, and Rich Rodriguez, who would have been the Alabama coach instead of Nick Saban. It's still the wildest thing if he wanted the job. I guess, I've read plenty of different things as to why he didn't take the job, but still, it's still the wildest thing. We obviously played Rich Rod when he was the OC in 2019 under Matt Luke. And Rich Rodriguez is a really talented play caller. His son is one of the quarterbacks that ULM actually plays. But this is a 4-6 football team that's on a 3-game losing streak. They lost to a very mediocre Arkansas State team, but they also beat a really talented 7-3 Liberty Flames team coached by Hugh Freeze and quarterback by Malik Willis, who looks to be the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. So, yeah, I mean, ULM's had some impressive wins, but they're obviously playing their worst football of the year right now. And ironically, LSU offensively is doing the same, but they're playing their best football on the defensive side of the ball. So, yeah, as far as ULM is concerned, this shouldn't be any issue for LSU, but I cannot say this enough. I could make an argument that the Max Johnson tape versus Arkansas was even worse than Bama or any other game this year. He was really, really, really bad, and it's to the point now where I think this guy is broken. I think Max is so broken with his footwork and mechanics and decision-making that he needs to get a private new quarterback coach. I don't know if it's visiting with the Palmers. That helped out Bo Nix. I don't know if it's visiting with Quincy Avery, James Washington, just someone else to get a fresh set of eyes on Max Johnson, because this is, it's off. You guys have been looking at the point spread here, and the weather looks to be pretty perfect for a late 8 p.m. Kickoff in Tiger Stadium. Over under set for 57.5 and the line of 29 points. I just don't understand how you can put any money on LSU to cover 29 points when the team's confidence is this shot. I understand defensively things look as if LSU would dominate this ULM offense, but the counter to that would be, well, Rich Rodriguez was the last real offensive coordinator to surprisingly tear apart Dave Aranda's defense, which he did with very creative running schemes, typical Rich Rod stuff. So, yeah, if there was a play on this game, I would like ULM to cover a 4 touchdowns and a point spread. But what do I know? 8 p.m. kickoff with a Thanksgiving game around the corner. I am a little worried about what Tiger Stadium would look like. I know a lot of fans aren't going to be gung-ho about going to an 8 p.m. kickoff and sitting in traffic after that game and getting home at 2 in the morning when the coach himself isn't even putting his best players on the field in the name of a redshirt rule that you don't have to be beholden to. And by the way, LSU might be rushing Sage Ryan back on the field, which would be his 3rd game, and if he played Texas A&M, it would be his 4th. So it would not make sense to play him in the bowl game to preserve his red shirt. So why wouldn't you just wait and play Sage Ryan versus Texas A&M, a game where you might really need him? But what do I know? Still, though, you look at some of the stats and all that stuff. It's kind of hard to see LSU not getting the job done. I do think it's going to be a little clunky. It does help having Jack Besh and BTJ out there. It does help having TDP out there. ULM's just not that good. They've been falling off a cliff. So I'm going to go final score here. LSU 28, ULM 10. Why not? That was weird. Let's go LSU 31, ULM 10. There's going to be at least a Cade York field goal mixed in there somewhere. So as you guys can see, this is the least excited I've been about an LSU football team. And I know it's weird because everyone wants to just talk about head coaching rumors and what's next, but I hate it, right? Every game matters to me, and it matters to everyone in that locker room that's fighting tooth and nail to try and get to a bowl game. But, not everybody is putting their best foot forward right now. So, let's talk about this. Mark Stoops is a name that's being thrown around. The One Team One podcast guys have sauces. They call them sauces. That's so good. And they say Mark Stoops is in the running here, and Bill O'Brien's name is being floated around right now. The offensive coordinator at Alabama and the disgraceful ending at Houston. So, the bonuses of both of those guys would be experience, right? They both have an idea of what they want their program to look like. So it won't be a learning on the job kind of situation with either one of them. Mark Stoops, what he's done in Kentucky is very impressive, but he's very conservative as a coach, and I just like aggression on fourth down, which is why guys like Lane Kiffin and Dave Aranda really excite me because of their fourth down aggression, more notably Dave Aranda, who's a little bit more practical about his aggression, but still, I just don't understand Mark Stoops or Bill O'Brien. This could just be one big O smoke screen, but once again, what do I know at this point? So, yeah, I'm fading it. I'm fading both of those guys at this point, and I would be rather disappointed if the coaching search landed on either one of those guys. I would much rather Napier, who I haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about on this channel, but still, I would prefer Napier. I would prefer a lot of names over Mark Stoops and Bill O'Brien. Or what about Jimbo? So I've been getting asked to do a Jimbo deep dive, and I did one yesterday, and not many of you watched it. So if you want to see my thoughts on Jimbo Fisher, it's floating in your face. My thoughts on my number one candidate. There was some news. Some pretty interesting news surrounding our number one candidate. That video will be floating in your face if you want to check that out as well. Don't forget pregame, postgame. No, not pregame, halftime and postgame this weekend. Shout out to everyone that's buying the PHO merch, enjoying the content. I appreciate you. Boom! It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Oh, we're doing burgers tonight. Let's